is I, Rowan Hand. I've come to that delicious point in the programme where I can remove my glasses. It's an indicator that I'm not going to work very hard for the next 20 minutes, because I have Cormac Campbell here, who's going to tell me all about the Newry Reporter after he greets me.
Good morning, Rowan.
Good morning, Cormac.
You look like a man who spent the last week chained to the railings trying to prevent historic buildings from being tossed.
My days of worrying about historic buildings have gone.
That's because there's none left anymore.
How's the tours going?
Tour's going all right. I won't be doing one now until early in July. So,
Yeah. Oh, you're only around the corner. You know.
July?
July.
Yeah. So maybe the second week of July. Waking up?
Yeah.
I've enough to
July.
be doing, Rowan. I've enough to be doing.
Go on.
I suppose we'll start. It's
Yeah.
quite a busy front page because there's been so much going on.
Yeah.
Really.
You caught a couple of lines on the woman who perished.
Unfortunately, yes, a lady called Patricia Campbell.
Do you know her?
No,
I can't
the
put a
name
face to
sounds
it.
familiar,
Yeah.
but she's no relation to
No.
myself.
No.
Very sorry for her family. Presumably,
God.
there is a family link to myself somewhere down there.
Somewhere, yeah.
Now, the details of that were just coming through as we were going
Yeah.
to press. Now, the main story on this week's paper is in relation to council procedures, but also the development of the Albert Basin.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back to March, it had been
a big story.
agreed at a council meeting that a subcommittee would be set up
Yeah.
for bringing together the ideas, proposals and plans for the development of the basin. Now, the basin has been scourged with problems. If you remember back to 2007, 2008, the development plan collapsed. Oh, you did the voiceover for one of the proposals?
No, I didn't do that. I did the proposal.
You did the proposal?
I did the entire video presentation.
And yes,
And we were flying high. There's a lot of money spent on that.
other proposals were available.
Oh, one or two lesser morsels.
Aside from that, that didn't happen.
No.
More recently, we had the Newry on Ice fiasco. And now...
That seems like another world.
Yeah, now more recently, we've had a proposal to set up a subcommittee that would bring together the various groupings to bring forward ideas for the future of the basin. That was agreed at the March monthly meeting of the council. We've since learned that there's a grouping within the council called the Party Leaders meeting, and they were responsible essentially for deciding the makeup of the committee. Instead, they decided to scrap the committee.
Why?
3 meetings that had been organised by a council officer, bringing in groups such as Newry 2020, Newry Maritime Association and Newry Urban Sports to hear their proposals for what they would like to see on the basin, were cancelled.
Why?
So we're now at a point in time whereby a group within the council has cancelled, binned a subcommittee set up by the full council without the full council's approval. What's more, the person who initially proposed the formation of the subcommittee was not informed that this had happened until the Newry Reporter told him that his proposal had been binned.
Why is this going on?
Well,
Because it seems the most natural thing in the world to have a committee, doesn't it?
Well, it partly, as you know, there's a new super council coming in next year.
Yep.
Now, the rationale given is that the brief would be handed over to the super council. However, the current council is meant to fulfil its duties to the full extent in the meantime. So it's rather unusual in the sense, but that's only an element. The Albert Basin is only an example of the issue here. The issue here is that is a subcommittee within the council binning the proposals and agreed proposals of the full council without their subsequent recommendations.
Seems a dreadful pity.
Now, this matters to come back before the Economic Development Committee. But the issue here is that the recommendation of the group leaders, or the party leaders committee, has already been actioned. These meetings have already been cancelled. I got a statement from the council saying this was a decision of the party leaders. Is it the party leaders' decision to overrule the full council?
And are they?
According to the council, it's not.
And are they? Would they be entitled to do that?
According to the council, no.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So this is sorry. I know a number of councillors not sitting on the party leaders committee are quite angry about this. I've spoken to a number of them, and you'll be hearing more of this in the coming weeks.
Are they all whistleblowers?
You're a whistleblower, Rowan.
Don Quixote. Windmills, bring them on.
And a little bit of good news. New school for Cross McLean, St. Joseph's.
Tell me about that. Explain that. Is it a new school or is it a new... There's a contradiction between your headline and your first paragraph.
Well, it's still St. Joseph's.
I know that, but I mean, is it a new school or is it a new building within the present school complex?
Well, it'll replace the current school.
Oh, that doesn't... Yeah.
It's a new £14.5 million building for St. Joseph's High School. So it's very good news for the provision of education in South Armagh.
Certainly is.
I think they've been lobbying hard for it in recent years, and they've finally made a bit of progress.
Excellent.
If one building's going up, others are coming down, and that's Canal
you
Street.
have it there. Yeah.
And on the front page, we've got quite a striking photo. It was actually submitted by Bertie Flynn, one of the residents of Canal Street.
Yes.
And the buildings, which Bertie believes are about 250 years old. Now, last week, you may remember, we spoke about how a crack had emerged in the side of one of the buildings. Now, what people were a little surprised about when the demolition team moved in was that not only was the terrace with the building with the crack demolished, but a second terrace was also demolished.
A terrace? Or a single house?
No, more than...
The entire terrace?
2 terraces.
You're
talking about 10 buildings and all.
Gone? Dead? Snuck through?
Well, we contacted the DOE in relation to had they given permission for the demolition of all of these buildings, and they said they had. We also asked whether any subsequent development have to replace the buildings in a like-for-like fashion. They totally ignored that question.
They would. That's a more difficult one for them.
We got back to them and said, you've ignored the question. They then came back and said, oh, can we submit another statement on this? We had already gone to press at this stage, so they may submit another reply to it next week.
Yeah.
But this is a conservation area on Canal Street, and these buildings may not have been the most attractive in their current condition, but they were protected. Yeah. And as such, for all of them to be demolished in one go, especially when the problem appeared to have only been with one. Well, you can understand perhaps one terrace. Being the problem, but the other terrace was unrelated. Now, what also this raises is that only about 3 months ago, a considerable sum of money was spent painting and upgrading the appearance of these buildings, which, if we're discussing public funds, appears to be flushing money down the toilet.
And I haven't even mentioned seating arrangements on Monaghan Row.
Well, we can move to that now if you like.
Oh gosh!
So we've discussed the council chamber issue at length.
Oh yeah.
Now we've done a little bit of maths. The additional capacity of Newry and Mourne District Council's £406,639 boardroom expansion could be required as seldom as 6 times a year. And that would mean that if they use it for 20 years or 120 meetings, whichever comes first, it would break down at £3,389 per meeting. Now, I was at there was a council meeting in the chamber last night for the new super council.
Yes.
This was a subgrouping of 21 councillors. So the majority of committees on the new council will have just 21 members, which could be more than comfortably catered for in the current facility. The full council at present is scheduled to meet 12 times a year.
Yes.
Half of those meetings will be in Downpatrick, half will be in Newry.
6.
Now, that may increase, but it's not going to increase substantially. It may increase to 12 meetings a year, at which rate you'd still be talking, you'd be paying £3,389 for 10 years. So it's a lot of money for a little.
Well, you make the point very, very strongly there in your paper today.
If you are looking for a way of paying it, one of the functions that transfers to the new council is off-street car parking.
Oh, yes.
And some figures were released in the assembly last week. And off-street car parking charges, there are 11 paid car parks, state-owned car parks.
In Newry?
No, in the new district.
In the new, right across.
In the new district. So that takes in Newry, Ballynahinch and Downpatrick. They're the only areas with these car parks.
So we'll be splitting how much between the towns?
Well, granted, there are costs.
Yeah.
There may be fees to pay to the departments.
Yeah.
But the revenues from these car parks last year came in at £437,783. Not small beans
No,
by
not
anyone's.
small beans at all for your tin.
Exactly.
Now, take me on, oh great Jehovah,
And after
so to
all that
speak.
heavy stuff, I'm going to go to something
Oh,
a little
do,
more
please.
relaxed.
Yeah,
And on page
do.
2, I'm actually delighted the production team were able to dig up a colour version of this image. Now, 10 years ago this week, it is World Cup time after all.
Yes.
And
Why did
Newry.
the boy biting the boy?
I heard you
Third
got disqualified or sent off a number of times for. I once got disqualified in the egg and spoon race.
Oh yeah, you're a terrorist as a baby. Yeah. I once was offered a trial for Glenavon. No, Portadown.
So memorable. You
12.
can't remember which team.
At 12.
At
I was
12.
offered a long time ago.
So somebody who actually would have got selected from following a trial with one of those teams was Colin Clark.
Yes.
And Colin Clark obviously was one of 3 Newry born.
Who is he?
He played for Nottingham Forest as a professional footballer until 10 years ago this week. Was also Northern Ireland's highest international goal scorer.
There you are.
Now, he lost his
Would he
record.
have been as good as Peter McParland?
Well, he scored in the World Cup.
Scored in the World Cup.
He scored in the World Cup against Spain in 1986.
I was at that game.
Were you?
In Korea.
No.
No, when was
Mexico.
it? No, it was the Korean World Cup I was at. Ireland went out to Spain.
2002.
2002.
So Colin Clark's record went 10 years ago this week when David Healy overtook him in the summer of 2004. Now we've dug up a photograph of a team that Colin Clark played on. You've put a different name in my head.
Yes, it is.
So the photo is of him lining out for Millvale Swifts in the 1970s.
Yes.
And interestingly, Clark wasn't the only international athlete on the team, with former Irish hockey star John McKee also lining out for the team. So there's a nice little look back. There'll be some very familiar faces both in the local sports scene.
It's interesting because as well as being a gunslinger with words, you're also a sentimental old guy.
My heart bleeds.
I know, I can see it all over you. You're just so... Yeah, go on ahead.
Staying with feel-good news, with 2 very sizable charitable efforts this week. The first is that the Kevin Bell Repatriation Trust held their annual quiz and raised, I believe, something in the region of £38,000. Now that takes Aidan O'Rourke's fundraising quiz. He's raised money for dozens of good groups to over £585,000 since he initiated. Now the second charitable story relates to Newry man Michael Dillon, who his marathon challenge to raise money for a children's cancer charity will be completed on Sunday with a 40-mile run. Michael's wife Sinead beat breast cancer last summer, and he's already completed 5 marathons as part of his fundraising drive for the Northern Ireland Cancer Fund for Children. He's raised £14,000 so far, so if you see him about the town, make a donation and bring that total up a little bit further.
That will be done.
Effort.
That will be done.
Let me see.
We're into your last 5 minutes.
Into my last 5 minutes. Again, staying with something a little lighter. Stats and damn stats. Rowan, at the council meeting, the super council meeting, there was a document distributed among the councillors with the statistics of the new area. Perhaps this was to give them some insight into the people and the demographics of who they were representing.
Yes.
Now, the first issue that was raised in relation to the demographics was by Newry councillor Gary Stokes.
Oh yes.
Gary Stokes raised...
Nice to see him back. He's a good lad.
Gary raised the issue that in the statistics it presented to councillors, it said that the ethnic minority population of Newry is 0.82%, while the white population is 99.18%. So as Gary said, are we suggesting that ethnic minorities can't be white?
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah.
So if you look at some of the statistics from the 2011 census, there are 3,327 non-Irish or British passports in the district that are held by natives of other EU countries, obviously the majority of which would be Polish.
Yes.
Polish people tend to be white. So are we suggesting for a second that Polish people aren't ethnic minorities? Yeah. I think not.
I find it interesting in the reporting in the Irish News about the fellow who went into the river from the bridge opposite the butter crane. They made the point, a man went into the river, he was a foreign national. I'm not sure what the relevance of that is. A man went into the canal, he's a neighbour from down the street.
When names aren't readily available.
But that's a convenience, that's a journalistic laziness. You know, if they're putting that in, like that actually underpins the notion of their difference. If you're emphasizing emphasizing that difference.
I think there's an element of people want to know who a person involved in something is, whether it's good or unfortunate.
Yeah.
And for that reason, the relevant community who may know the person.
Yeah.
There is an element in
there's
terms
an element
of identification.
Of that, surely there's also the
it
element
is an easy
that
label, perhaps.
For as long as we label people like that, we accentuate difference, and that's my worry. We don't
People are
do that.
different, though. I
Yeah,
think
but
it's important to
people,
remember
because
that.
of their difference, they're getting their flags burnt on top of loyalist bonfires in Belfast. So anything that exacerbates that, I think, is to be frowned upon. Anyway, that's just me.
A further problem with the statistics provided to councillors was raised by Councillor Garth Craig. He's from the Down District side of...
There's a new name for you.
He's a new name. Learn Slieve Croob councillor, so Slieve Croob's around Castlewellan, Kilcoo direction. So he has given hope to all the single ladies in Newry and Mourne when he confirmed that the odds of them meeting a partner are greater than even the Weather Girls who sang the classic hit It's Raining Men could have hoped for. Wow. Referring to the report presented to councillors on the demographic breakdown of the district, Councillor Craig said, "It says that the female population of Newry and Mourne is 0.26%. I presume it should be 50.26%. He presumed right. With a population of 99,840, this 0.26% would mean there's only about 250 women in the district.
There'll be murder. We need to go very soon. We need to go.
I'll quickly move on to sport. And obviously, Armagh, big game this weekend against Monaghan.
Yes, indeed.
So can book a place in the Ulster final against Donegal. Now they are missing the 3 suspended players from the brawl. So they're up against it.
They certainly got off with their 5,000 brave and easy, didn't they? Anyway, that's another
Down Ulster in action at Park Esler against Leitrim on Sunday. So make sure you turn out for that. There'll be a big crowd at that.
And leave your car at home.
The Newry City Triathlon was launched this week. So get your bike, get your running shoes, and get your swimming trunks ready for...
Oddly enough, I'm taking up swimming again. I am. I've got my swimming wetsuit, and I'm now going to be swimming once again, all year round.
Lightning hand.
More stolid and staunch and strong and surviving rather than... Not speed. I was never speedy. No, never, ever.
Also, it's the time of year for some of the summer soccer tournaments and team presentations. So we have a number of features on those.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
God bless you. Go well.
You too.
Coming very, very shortly, David O'Hare from Trócaire on the great success of this year's Lenten campaign and the wonderful work that Trócaire continues to do across the majority world. That's coming shortly. Music, please, Andrew.